Up next, the Missouri Respect Institute panel. This panel will be facilitated by Katie from the Missouri Mental Health Foundation. Please join me in welcoming Colby, Avery, and Katie to Real Voices, Real Choices.
Hi, I'm Colby Weathers. The year is 2009. I'm wearing a big cooking pot wrapped in tin foil as I peek out my front door. Every car that drives past my apartment is there to stalk me. Helicopters have been flying over me all day long. At least if I wear my tinfoil pot, my stalkers can't hear my thoughts. Or can they? I break down and sob. How did I get to this place? How did my life become such a mess? My name is Colby, and this is my story. I was raised in a tiny farm town outside of Kansas City. I was close to my parents and my brother. I would say I had a good childhood, except I was nervous, anxious, and scared of my own shadow. I was painfully shy, and elementary school was hard for me because I was so self-conscious. By my teenage years, my anxiety became coupled with a low self-esteem. I always hung out with a bad group of kids. I graduated high school at age 18 and started school. Going to class was often too difficult for me because I felt everyone was laughing at me. If I felt that I couldn't do an assignment perfectly, I was afraid to turn it in. My diagnosis is schizoaffective disorder with bipolar features. I wasn't diagnosed till later, but at this period of my life, I could see my symptoms start to manifest. I could not decide on a major and changed schools 3 times. It took me until I was 24 to finish college. In 1998, at age 24, I entered the workforce and bought my own home. There were many days I was exhausted at work because I would be up all night reorganizing closets. I would wake up at midnight and have the compulsion to rip everything out of the closet, or sometimes a whole room, and I have to put everything back together again. I was also having problems with paranoia at work, thinking coworkers were plotting against me. At age 28 is the first time I went to the doctor with my symptoms. Because I couldn't correctly vocalize my symptoms, and because I was weeping so much, the doctor diagnosed me as depressed and gave me Zoloft. I stopped taking the drug because it made me feel so despondent I had to stop taking it. From age 28 to 34, my life just seemed to get worse. I got divorced. I was anxious and worried about everything from personal finance to nuclear war. I lived my life in constant fear, but still I did not seek help again until 2007. I was 34 years old. I found myself awake for at least 3 days. I was so tired I was seeing things. I was convinced that people were stalking me and could hear my thoughts. I tried to convince my family that the government had implanted a microchip in my brain when I was a child. I was routinely sleeping wrapped in tinfoil so laser beams would not burn my skin while I slept. I begged my parents to take me to the hospital. They took me to Truman ER Medical Center, where I was admitted to the mental health unit there. This became the first of many hospitalizations. The stays there were always the same. I'd be admitted, sometimes given a different diagnosis than the last time, and after a week or two, I would be released with a pile of prescriptions, many of which I could not afford. Between 2007 and 2012, I was hospitalized 4 times in inpatient mental health hospitals. When I was 35, I tried to take my own life. I swallowed all the bottles of psych drugs that I had, as well as Ambien and a bottle of Tylenol PMs. I told my second husband right before I collapsed that I had taken all the pills, and he rushed me to the ER, where I was forced to drink charcoal to induce vomiting. They kept me in the hospital for 2 days to make sure I had not damaged my kidneys, and then sent me to the psych ward again. The doctors would put me on drugs and take me off drugs, but nothing seemed to work. But the blame does lie with me. If I did not like the side effect of a drug, I just wouldn't take it. I'd become unable to work by the mid-2000s and started drawing disability. My parents insisted I come live with them because I was not taking care of myself. I was not bathing or taking medication. I moved home and I promised my parents I would take my medication, and I kept this promise because many mornings my mom would put the medicine in my mouth and force me to swallow it. While living with my parents between 2010 and 2012, I didn't do much of anything but search the internet for signs the world was ending. I became obsessed with religion. I wasn't sleeping. Sometimes I'd have spells where I'd walk for hours. I was scared that if I quit walking, I would die. I bought a bicycle, and I would ride the bike up and down the highway for hours till I almost collapsed. I could not live like this any longer. I went to Google and searched for the best way to commit suicide. I even found a website that told me the best type of gun to use. In June 2012, I purchased a handgun from a local pawn shop. I had not slept for days and I wanted to die. Voices were telling me to end it all. It was the only way to stop the pain. Where I bought the gun, witnesses said I was walking around talking to myself and hiding my face with my hands. I brought the gun home and I started to kill myself, but voices were yelling at me to shoot my father too, that he had been doing things to me at night while I slept. After I fatally wounded my father, I was arrested and taken to the local county jail. I never stepped foot in a jail in my life, and now I was locked in a 9x15 cell with no medication. Soon I was lying under my bunk crying uncontrollably. I started believing that TV news stories were about me. Jail was the hardest and worst time of my life so far. I was in the county jail for 15 months. In 2013, I was found not guilty by reason of insanity and was sent to Fulton State Hospital. The doctors there gave me my life back. We found a combination of medicine that worked for me, something that we couldn't seem to find before. When I got to Fulton, I was so traumatized I could barely speak. The psychiatrist there took special care of me and talked to me every day and asked me questions to help draw me out of my shell. I'm very grateful to the doctors and aides at Fulton. My social worker there was wonderful. She helped me deal with my father's death and even let me know it was okay to mourn him, something I felt I didn't deserve to do. The support staff there was always willing to listen when I needed to talk. They seemed to recognize when I was overwhelmed and need to step away from a situation and take a breather. Their help there was invaluable because of the stressful, violent environment of maximum security. I was attacked there twice and witnessed countless fights. The dedication of the staff there amazed me. I would see a staff member get hit or bitten by a patient and come back the next day and treat the patient no differently. It was complete professionalism. I've seen acts of compassion like aides talking soothingly to a person in restraints, helping them to calm down. I have seen counselors sing along to patient with patience and celebration, and I've seen social workers shed tears with their clients, sharing their disappointments and struggles. I can say for certain that saying good job or I'm sorry you had to go through that to a person who's struggling, that can change someone's whole day. And I've seen faces light up by someone in charge giving a patient a compliment. And I've had my own spirits lifted so many times by caring professionals. Now that I'm here at NMPRC, I'm impressed how the culture of respect permeates our whole campus. And I'm not perfect. I still have many lessons to learn about perceptiveness, sensitivity, and caring. Our team here does an excellent job of helping to instill us with all these values. Today, I can see a future for myself, and I couldn't do that for a long time. I hope to rejoin the community someday. My mother and my family are supportive of me, and they hope I can rejoin them in the future. With the help of doctors, team, my support system, and programs like the Respect Institute, I continue to heal. The only voice I hear today is my own telling me that I've survived, that I'm not to blame for my mental illness, and that my future can be anything but bright. Thank you for hearing my story.
Hi, my name is Avery Hollingman. I've attended this conference several times, but I never dreamed I would be a speaker. Thank you for this honor. I was born into this world, Denise Loren Holman, on October 2nd, 1972, in East Moline, Illinois. My father wasn't there, and that became the norm. Mother and father weren't together. My mother raised me and my brother with her family. They loved and supported us, always. I knew from the beginning I was different. Everybody, friends and family alike, talked about how smart I was. I never asked to be different, and kids made me feel like smart was a dirty word. I was bullied at school, which made school my greatest joy, but my greatest pain. Kids often teased me because I had no father, because he was killed when I was around 7 years old. My hopes and dreams of becoming a family also died then. I used to tell myself Father was on way on a business trip and that he would come back. Funny the lies we tell ourselves sometimes to keep moving on. Me and my brother are very close. We still are. I was rough and tough playing tackle football with the boys on our block. Growing up in the 70s in Hannibal, Missouri was a magical time and place. Life was good until he came. My life changed when Mother got a new boyfriend. I was around 9 or 10 when he came. He was fresh out of prison. He was built like a guy who lifted weights every day because that's what he was. I wasn't afraid. I was terrified. He was hard on me, giving me extra chores and enforcing different rules for me and brother. I had noticed him giving my mother pills. She was hooked. All she did was work and sleep. Our care was left totally up to him. One day, in a rage, I ran out the front door, slamming it. The glass shattered. I knew what was coming next, something terrible. See, he liked to physically abuse me along with other things he would do. When the glass shattered, he called Mother home from work. She called for me to come inside, promising no punishment. He grabbed me when I came in and dragged me into the living room and beat me every inning of the World Series, only stopping to rest on the commercials. My heart broke that night, and not just from the beating. Mother had called me inside, making her his accomplice. I couldn't go to school for 2 days. He told me he would take away what mattered most to me. Mother and brother were all I had, so I closed my mouth and shut it tight. I didn't realize I had begun to become ill. As he faded from my life, I was introduced to bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder type 1 is my diagnosis. It is defined by manic episodes that last at least 7 days. Depressive episodes usually occur, also typically lasting at least 2 weeks. Mixed episodes mean both moods together. My diagnosis first reared its head when I was 11 or 12. I remember. He and Mother were arguing about the pills. He pushed Mother down into a chair and pinned her there. He hit her in her face. Brother and I ran back to our room and got our baseball bats. All I can remember is the feeling of my bat making contact with his body. Eventually, the police came and saw him lying there battered. I was sitting down with my hands over my face. The officers tried to comfort me, but when they pulled down my hands, I was laughing. Trauma is such a powerful thing. Sometimes we may not even realize what it is until it has affected and infected us. Junior high came and somehow the powerless had become powerful. This time I was the bully. I was also a people pleaser, choosing to hang with a very rough crowd. Freshman year, I became a mother. I left school to homeschool. I had no idea what to do with the baby. My family was there, as always, to support me and my baby. Something was different, though. My moods began to really change. Sometimes I would even scare myself in one of my manic episodes, which became destructive. Depression lasted for a month or longer. I couldn't stay afloat. Slowly, I was beginning to drown from trying to live my everyday life. Mother was so concerned she found a place for me to get help. Misdiagnosis is common with mental illness. I was misdiagnosed and over-medicated. I stopped taking the pills in favor of street drugs. I was still hanging with that same rough crowd and had taken to selling drugs. I would still have my mood swings, which seemed to be getting more and more severe. When I had come back, I was behind in school and kids had started bullying me again. Things weren't great at home and I would stay out 2 or 3 nights a week, leaving my baby behind with my family. Mother and I started to grow apart. There are a few things you should know about Black culture and mental illness. First, my people tend to ignore symptoms. If symptoms aren't there, we don't have to face the reality that something, in fact, is wrong. Second is blame will be a sign. Blame is definitely assigned to the person who is suffering with the illness. It is their own fault, meaning they have caused the illness somehow. Mother and father are also to blame because using some unknown method, they transferred this illness to me like transcripts to a new school. It was in their genes, they thought, and they weren't exactly wrong, but it was still no reason to fault them. Last but certainly not least is shame. Mother would often ask, Lord, what I do to has happened to my child? I would pray, God, please help me stop acting this way so I will fit in. We weren't not allowed to bring this up outside our family. I'm not sure if Mother revealed it to a prayer group or kept it as her cross to bear. Coincidentally, these three things were also main issues when I came out as gay to my family. I had 2 more daughters in an attempt to prove to my mother I was not, in fact, gay. I never really could put or hold together a lasting relationship. Having my youngest daughter was a turning point in my life. Her birth made it easier for me to come out because I knew I was through having children and nothing could stop me from living as my true self, not even Mother. Being out brought a freedom I wasn't prepared to handle, and I ended up going to prison. While I was in prison, Mother took custody of my girls. When I was out again, I dove headlong back into drugs. I wandered from city to city selling and doing drugs. I spent summer with my girls and convinced that is what laid the foundation for the relationships we have today. My life hasn't been all troubles. I've smiled a lot, laughed a lot, and even loved a lot. There's been picnics, dances, birthday parties, and swimming pools. I've been blessed to have the moments I've shared, especially moments talking with God. Even though I've always been different, I've struggled and strived to get to higher ground. My family has been ever present, trying to understand me and my disorder. They have never given up on me, and their love makes me better. I tried in earnest to keep myself out of trouble, but I have been to prison twice. I never did get custody of my oldest and my middle girls, but 2010 was the possibility of custody of my youngest daughter. 2010 also brought with it a level of sickness I could barely handle. Multiply that with drug addiction, and there sits one dangerous cocktail. So February 14th came and went with no Valentine. I've been up for 4 days and had a huge argument with a friend. I thought about killing myself, but she started yelling at me and it enraged me, so I pushed her out of the car, then I hit her with it. Thank God she wasn't hurt, and I was taken to jail. This was another turning point in my life because I could see how powerful my illness was. I say was because that was then. Now I have it by the tail. I'm still fighting. I ended up in Missouri Department of Mental Health. Now I couldn't stand being locked up, but DMH helped me find a medicine that is right for me. I was put in the New Outlook program, which gave me many tools to battle my disorder. I have some weapons in my arsenal to battle this beast now. I have Dual Recovery Anonymous for people with drug addiction and mental illness. I attend therapy. I want to become a speech pathologist or a motivational speaker. I want to continue being a good mom and grandmother. I want to increase my faith. I have a bachelor's degree in social work, and I want to help others in any way I can. I hope to write a book of my journey. If I have to leave you with something, I will leave you with these words. Just because you're different doesn't mean you can't have the best life you can. Thank you.
Wow. Such amazing stories of resilience, and we really appreciate you sharing. Thank you so much to Colby and Avery for sharing their stories on behalf of the Respect Institute. So my name is Katie Andrews. I'm with the Missouri Mental Health Foundation, and I just wanted to hop on and kind of share with you how Colby and Avery came to be able to tell their stories in such a way that we can all sit back and appreciate and relate to. The Respect program in Missouri, the Respect Institute of Missouri, is actually now under the Missouri Mental Health Foundation. It has recently transitioned from the Department of Mental Health. And so just to tell you a little bit about that program, the Respect Institute provides training and support to mental health consumers who have chosen to tell their stories of experience with mental illness, treatment of substance use disorders and recovery. this program focuses on, each participant has a unique story, and they're the owner of that story, and they decide how it gets told. So, if their story doesn't come out, then they'll never share it with anybody. So that's what the Respect Institute does. We try to really help individuals construct and customize their stories so that they can share it far and wide and get other folks involved. So just real quick, a little history on the Respect Institute. It was created by mental health advocate Joel Slack, and he supports participants in developing skills necessary to transform their experiences of mental health and substance use challenges and cross disabilities into educational and inspirational presentations like we've seen here today. The Respect Institute supports participants in organizing, like I said, constructing and customizing their stories of recovery and independent living so they can share these stories in diverse venues, such as trainings or conferences like we've seen here today, orientations, universities. I met with a gal who was speaking to some nursing students. So they can share anywhere to kind of raise awareness, battle stigma, all the things that, the foundation and the Department of Mental Health support. The Respect training is actually a 3 or 4 day virtual training program, right now virtual. It's designed to empower our participants by acknowledging, honoring, and valuing their personal experiences and insights. And then through that recognition and acceptance, participants, their experience, they heal, they can reclaim their sense of self, and they're catapulted into a level of recovery that, perhaps they never thought was possible, because sharing your story can be a form of healing and a coping mechanism. So through, lived experiences like those shared from Avery and Colby, we're able to not only understand where they come from, but also maybe put some words on where we come from. So I'd like to say, if you're interested in learning more about the Respect Institute and what we do and how we get folks involved, or how to get trained, how to see more presentations, just reach out to us here at the foundation. I see we've got our website there, and you're always welcome to use the contact form on the website, get in touch with us. And I would love to connect you to a training and really give you some more information on what the Respect Institute is about, because Colby, Avery, that was just amazing. And I know it moved me, and I'm sure it looks like in the comments it moved so many of our participants. So we really appreciate you guys speaking. So I don't know if there's any questions. But I will kick it back to Christina. And again, I just say, if you are interested in the Respect Institute and finding out how to share your story, how to put it into words, how to get it out there, let us help you do that. Get a hold of the Missouri Mental Health Foundation, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.